The media keeps saying that guns are the problem. Well, I've got a pretty disturbing article to talk about today that shows that guns aren't the problem and that insane people are. And insane people are going to use guns and whatever means of other harmful devices and other harmful tools to harm people that they possibly can. It's coming up. Stay tuned. All right, what's up, Patriots? So today we're going to be looking at this pretty freaky article. I saw this just as I was opening up my computer at school today, and I figured, you know what, this is probably something that I should do a video on, especially since I haven't gotten anything out in over a month. Speaking of which, new videos for the Texas abortion bill, the vaccine mandate, and the catastrophe in Afghanistan are coming down the pipeline. Probably going to do a stream with Libertas tomorrow to cover the California election, but that's up in the air, so we'll see if that goes down. But anyways, let's talk about the article at hand. Two Florida boys ages 13 and 14 arrested after allegedly plotting Colombia-style mass shooting. They amassed guns, ammunition, and knives. So here are our two defendants accused, not proven guilty yet. They have not been formally convicted in a court, but I would still like to talk about this case. Now, obviously, these two are not adults. I mean, ages 13 and 14. I believe he's 13 and he's 14, but I could be wrong. And if somebody knows in the comments, please correct me on that. All right. So, what are the details? Police arrested 13-year-old Connor Purett and 14-year-old Philip Bird. I'm probably horribly botching those names, but I don't care. After investigators discovered that the two were plotting to execute a mass killing at Harns Marsh Middle School in Florida. Authorities detained the two on Thursday after a school resource officer at the school was notified that one of the students had a gun in his backpack. While authorities did not find any weapons on either suspect, investigators say that they did determine that the two were extensively planning an attack to take place at the school. An investigation found that two students amassed guns, ammunition, knives, and a detailed map of the school's interior and its surveillance cameras. Now, this is something that I actually want to do a video on the run, hide, fight ad or safety video that's shown in like every school in America at every high school because it's really outdated. It's actually super bad advice, and it's pretty much the last thing that you want to do in the event of an actual school shooter because it's more than likely it's bound to get a lot of people killed. And these guys were actually factoring that in to their the way that they were going to conduct this mass shooting, allegedly. Can't say that these two did it because they haven't been convicted yet. So that video it gives terrible advice. There's a lot of things in there that shouldn't be practiced anymore. Now that mass shooters have had the opportunity to plan out their attacks and to see where people are going to be coming out of, they know the emergency responses because most of the time it's students at the school who are going to carry out this kind of shooting. So that video is terrible advice, and I need to do a video debunking it. But anyways, on with the article at hand. Connor and Philip both appeared in front of a Lee County judge on Sunday after being taken into custody on Saturday. Both teen suspects were held for at least 21 days in secured juvenile detention where they will undergo an extensive mental health evaluation. Now, you see, Florida actually does something very correct here because they have to deal with Florida man half the time, which I think it's fair to call these two Florida kids or the Florida killer kids. But anyways, Florida has to deal with a lot of mental health problems. So they have one of the best mental health workups in their prison systems in basically the whole country. Second only to, I think, Arkansas and Texas, but I could be wrong about that. I know Arkansas is really good, but I've also heard that Texas is pretty good. Philip's mother, Carrie Turner, appeared in court on Sunday where she defended her son. Now, this is a total Karen defense. He's just a little boy. She said he didn't think this was really serious. He didn't think they were serious. Yes. So what the teens amassed here, I'd like to go over. Now, in terms of the pistol here, I have no idea what this is. It looks like a CZ, but it's been jerry-rigged and duct taped together, so honestly, it could be a pipe gun that looks like a CZ. This looks like an M&P shield, but I could be wrong. This is a very low-def picture. Um, there were also a variety of knives, including these, which I'd like to talk about. These look like pungies. So they literally took wood poles, cut them down, and made them into sharp sticks, which are called pungies, referring to punji pits, which were very common in Vietnam and killed a lot of our troops. Where the Viet Cong would take sticks, sharpen them to these points, these daggers essentially, put them in pits and cover them up with a bunch of fake turf. And then the troops would step in and fall to their death and just get impaled on punjies. So essentially, that's what they've created here. Now, I'd also like to talk about there's a generic knife here. This is some kind of takedown, single shot, probably breech loaded rifle. I wouldn't expect this to be dealing with a whole crowd, but like taking out people at range. This is what this would be good for. This would do the same job, but this is a far more what's the word I'm looking for? Far more capable firearm. This looks like a lever action of some kind, probably based on that tube that it's got there. This is probably some kind of 357 all the way up to a 4570. So this thing is going to pack a punch, and it's definitely going to be faster at dealing with people than this, and it's going to have comparable range. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this picture is this right here. Now, this is, like I've said, wood stocks are a little bit hard to talk about when you're dealing with most firearms and firearms pictures, just because there's a lot of firearms floating around out there that have wooden stocks like this. But this one appears to me to be a pretty cut and dry M2 carbine, which was the replacement. Well, not really replacement. It was a complement to the M1 Garand, which was used. It was issued to our troops fighting in the Pacific and in the European front during World War II. It was a carbine essentially, so it was mag fed, easier to use than the M1 Garand, and it used the 3030 cartridge. It's still a very capable cartridge, and it was semi-automatic. So this is essentially the precursor to the 1022 right here. So this is very capable, very deadly firearm, as the Nazis found out the hard way. So, according to the police, the Lee County Sheriff, these two had been studying the 1999 mass killing that took place at the Columbine High School, um, and they were also studying how to construct pipe bombs. So, the rest of the article is inconsequential, but I will link it down in the description below. But essentially, what you need to realize here is that these two, first of all, were completely whacked in the head. I mean, you would have to be completely psychotic in order to pull off something like this at your high school or your middle school. And these two obviously, they knew what they were doing. They were studying probably the most famous mass killing school shooting ever, and they had amassed quite an arsenal, if I had to say so myself, for like a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old in Florida, nonetheless. These two were packing some firepower. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they could take on the cops for a little while and hold out in a firefight. With those lever actions and the M2, yeah, they definitely have the range to do it. But what I need people to understand here is that they had knives and punjies, and they were studying how to build pipe bombs. Okay, the 21st century criminal has changed. It's not we can't stop people from getting firearms anymore. And even if we could, they just resort to making their own, like this jerry-rigged CZ, which I dare even call it that. Probably a pipe gun, and for those who don't know, a pipe gun refers to some kind of jerry-rigged firearm. This is made out of a pipe, a trigger, and whatever you can make to make it cycle or breech load around, and like the thing to keep the whole thing together. So basically, the casing or the stock. That's essentially what this is. And then they also created just pungies out of nothing. So the criminal of the 21st century has changed in their entirety. We can't stop them from getting firearms anymore. We can't stop them from getting deadly weapons anymore. And even if we could, obviously they're just going to study other means of killing people because they were studying how to construct pipe bombs. Which, I mean, if you really wanted to, pipe bombs aren't the hardest thing to build. What do you think a cherry bomb is? It's basically the same thing. Now, another thing I'd like to compare this to is the story from, I think, last year. Officers forced to fire on 14-year-old girl, 12-year-old boy after pair reportedly shoot at cops during robbery. So these two foster kids in Volusia County, Florida, broke into a home of a gun owner who happened to have an AK-47 and a shotgun and a couple of pistols lying around. Why those weren't secured, I have no idea. That's on the photo of the homeowner, and that was a really dumb thing to do. But the thing is, these guys got their hands on some pretty serious firepower as well. And for a couple of hours, they actually took pod shots at cops and they held out in a firefight until the 14-year-old got shot by a cop and the 12-year-old saw that and surrendered. Thankfully, they're both still alive and probably undergoing immense psychiatric workups. But the moral of the story here is criminals are going to find a way to get guns. And unfortunately, guns aren't the problem. In fact, it would be much easier if guns were the problem. They're not. And criminals are going to find a way to get them. Over in the corner here, I have a 3D printer. It's remarkably easy to create 3D printed firearms nowadays. Even ones that are single shot and just blow up after you shoot them, it's remarkably simple. It doesn't, all it takes is a basic understanding of how firearms work. After that, it's as simple as a parts kit to build a higher level firearm, like a pistol or an AR or an AK. And with the flood of firearms coming on across the Mexican border, and there is a flood of firearms. And boy, do I have some stories about that. But that's for another video. I'm sorry, it's just simply impossible to stop criminals from getting guns these days. There's 3D printed parts floating around on the internet now to turn the civilian models of the M249 and the M60, which are both machine guns, squad automatic weapons, chambered in rifle cartridges. There were civilian models of those produced during the Afghan and Vietnam wars for the civilian market that were only semi automatic. Well, there's parts floating around on the internet now, 3D printable parts to turn those guns back to fully auto. 3D printing has in its entirety killed gun control, and there's no conceivable fix to that. What people need to realize nowadays is that the best way to stop criminals like this is A, better people policing, and B, arming the citizenry. I guarantee you, if some of the teachers in this school had been able to carry firearms, which some of them probably were, this is Florida, concealed carry, 1911 or a Glock or a 2011 or an M&P Shield, I guarantee you that even if these kids had pulled off the shooting that they were trying to conduct, even though the teachers would have been outgunned, they could probably still have taken down one or both of these guys. The best way to counter a shooter is by shooting them and by having somebody immediately on the scene who's armed and can shoot them before the cops arrive, because the cops are going to take some time to arrive. But anyways, I'm going to try and cut this video short. That's what I wanted to get discussed in this video, and hopefully more videos coming down the pipeline very, very soon. Glad to be back. Hopefully there's more coming from me very soon, and hopefully I can get a stream in with Libertas and some others if they're able to join us tomorrow for covering the California election. So stay tuned to my channel or his channel, which I'll post in the description below. And just watch those guys. If you see us streaming tomorrow, then hop in, and we'll be happy to take some questions as we cover the election. All right, guys, stay armed and stay safe, Patriots. things are getting rough out there really quickly, especially with the vaccine mandate and with psychos like these running around. It's going to get hairy pretty soon. So, by all means, stay armed and stay safe.
Well, that was idiotic. Off to hang myself, hot and